Hey, this is part 2 of our Dr. Scotty Butcher interview. You listen to the Duck Legs podcast. This is Jared Aguilar. I'm a student physical therapist here in Austin, Texas. I've got 2 other co-hosts on this podcast, Daimir Jones and Tyler Adams. They're also physical therapy students. And welcome back if you're listening to part 1. And welcome for the first time if you're starting with part 2. I don't know why you would do that, but I'm not judging. I'm just happy you chose to listen to this podcast for whatever reason. I don't know what life choices led you down this road. For that, I'm sorry. You probably have better things to do than have 3 physical therapy students in your ear. But no, you made the right choice. You made the right choice. That's okay. Because we got Dr. Scotty Butcher on, and he is a badass. He is, not only is he a physical therapist, he's a researcher, he is a clinical exercise physiologist, and he's a Canadian, and he's a Star Wars nerd. So I don't really know what else you want from us other than that. Please let us know. But anyway, all jokes aside, hope you're having a good day, hope you're having a great week. Thanks for tuning in. We're about to get into some Star Wars trivia. As soon as this intro stops, I am going to challenge Dr. Scotty on all things Star Wars. And yeah, if you want to know more about Dr. Scotty, follow and subscribe to Strength Rebels on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, what have you. They are providing some great content, really redefining what rehab and strength training and common fitness practice means to the public. And so I think if you're a fan of this show, you're definitely going to be a fan of what Dr. Scotty is putting out there. So on that note, enjoy. Appreciate you. We have some business to attend to, Dr. Scotty.
Sounds good.
All right, Tatooine. This was Luke's home planet, right? Well, Wikipedia.
This was Anakin's and Luke's home planet.
Okay.
Ooh. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Mr. Smarty Pants. Let's hit you with some Tatooine trivia. Let's see. What can we ask him about Tatooine? What do you think? What do you think, Tyler?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know anything about
Please don't ask me anything Star Wars.
Okay.
My first ever Star Wars
I just lost a lot of respect for you, Demir.
Yeah, you know what? And you should, because my first Star Wars movie was the last one, and I had no idea what was going on.
The Force Awakens?
Wow.
Yeah. It was my first one. I watched like through and through. And I watched the ones that came out like early 2000s, but I mean, I was a kid essentially. I mean, not really. I really didn't know what was going on.
Well, I feel really bad for you if your first exposure to Star Wars were the prequels. That's a problem.
And you know what? I'm meaning to go back, but when you have loads and loads of schoolwork, it's kind of tough to figure out which one,
Priorities, man. Star Wars above life.
I agree. I should make a shirt.
Is that your question there, Jared?
Yeah.
So
name a native species on the Tatooine planet, sir.
Well, humans.
Banthas
being another. Let's see, Womp Rats. What else do we got here? I'm blanking. There's this is terrible. There's those. Oh shit!
There you go.
This is bad, man. Okay, now you caught me. I named 3, but there's more. But anyway.
The infamous Tusken Raider.
Yeah, fuck. That's the one. I hope you guys don't mind the F-bombs, but
bring more of them.
Okay, well, fuck that then. The Tusken Raiders. Anyway, I could picture the one guy. You know in the you know what they did in the one scene where the guy's got his club over his head, right? They had to reverse it because they didn't get enough of a picture. So if you watch that one in A New Hope, and you can see him raising his club and his thing over his head, and then they reverse the recording. They reverse the screen, so it actually goes backwards. So he actually plays it. They play it forward then backwards, just to get a little bit more of the screen time for that.
Oh wow!
You're gonna have to watch it and see what I mean.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm gonna have to go check that out.
Right after exams and shit, right?
Or before.
Yeah, just like while I'm studying. I'm studying right now. I need to procrastinate.
I've been so into well, I can't say so into because I butchered the Tatooine reference earlier, but I've been trying to catch up on a lot of Star Wars trivia and stuff in preparation for December, right, when they dropped The Last Jedi. I can imagine that Dr. Scotty's a little bit excited about that, probably.
Oh, just a little.
Yeah. And I've been going through a lot of like Anakin's dark side moments, like all the things he's done in that turn when Palpatine was the dark axe or whatever they call him, and one was he like destroyed a bunch of Tusken Raiders, I think. Yep. After they killed his mom or his
that was his mom.
His mom.
Yeah, he went apeshit on those guys. Like he, I mean, that was the turning point for him, in my opinion.
What about when he killed the little Padawans?
Well, I mean, he was gone by then.
Oh, he was already gone.
Oh, he was already gone. Oh, yeah. Well beyond gone by then. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think your first move of going over is like killing a bunch of. I think by that point you've clearly you've made your move.
Yeah. You don't.
Well, I mean, the thing about it too, if you want to get into detail, which I can talk for hours, so don't let me go too far. But the thing about that is that was the thing that set him off, right? Because he struggled so much with the loss of his mom that when it came time for him to have the premonitions of the love of his life, Padme, dying, and so he's having all these premonitions, and the loss of his mom hurt him so bad that he was willing to do whatever it took so that she didn't die as well, because he couldn't handle the loss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I love those stories. That's such a good story when like you can understand why the bad guy's a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's not just a bad guy because he's a complete asshole. You're like, well, he kind of went through some shit.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, he was whiny though. Like oh my God, he was whiny. The first two. So, Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Oh my God, was he a whiny kid? Like, oh, it was terrible to watch. But then the shift, to see the shift towards him embracing the dark side as a chance to save Padme really is what he did, right? And just to watch that happen, I thought was really cool. But you gotta ignore the whiny shit.
So you don't share his disgust of sand?
No, I like sand.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd live on Tatooine. I'd be fine.
All
right. Let's go back to.
I want to relate
the blue milk. The blue milk is the big thing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm on Facebook.
Okay. Oh, hey, whose fault is that you're not a Star Wars fan? Daniel?
Hey, look, just let's move on to the next question.
I'm
ashamed. I'm already ashamed. I'm
gonna tie Star Wars into physical therapy right here, right now. Watch me.
Do it.
So, as we're leading up to December, apparently the Jedis must come to an end.
That's what Luke says. Apparently,
that's what Luke says. And because I've been so into Star Wars as of lately, I've done a little bit of research in that. So we know there's the Sith, which are the dark side, which are former Jedis, some of them that tend to practice on the dark side, and then we have the light side Jedis, Yoda and such, and Mace Windu, who may or may not be dead, and then we have those that we may be getting hinted at through the trailers of the gray Jedi.
Yeah.
That tend to practice from both worlds, both dark and light styles of using the Force. So I would like to make a comparison that the physio strength coach hybrid are the gray Jedis in today's universe that are taking from both. They're taking from both sides. If we want to call the dark side the strength coach and training, and the light maybe the
don't hurt anyone, like the pain, like
yeah, right. Yeah. The light side that we must use the Force for quad sets and other therapeutic exercises, and the dark side is like deadlifts all the time. Are you listening?
Yeah,
disturb, baby. Yeah,
I love it. I love it. And just I'll answer your question in a sec. But the Strength Rebels. You can imagine with my love of Star Wars where that name came from. Right?
I had a feeling.
Yeah. So it's for me. I looked at it in the reverse of what you've just said. I looked at it as the dark side was the destructive power of not doing enough. Which doesn't totally fit, right? So actually I like your analogy better. Okay. I do like it. So I think I might switch, but I can't change my name. Strength Rebels, Gray Jedi. No, that wouldn't work.
Strength Siths.
Yeah. but no, I think it's absolutely true, because there's a really big misconception in, those of us that are doing strength work within physical therapy, that it's like deadlifts all the time, it's squats all the time, you have to load, just load it, bro, like all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And there's some of that, right? But I think the ones that are doing it well are the ones that can bridge the two sides and really recognize that, it's like Luke is saying, is that there really is no light and dark side, and it's the balance between them that is really the strength of the force, and that would be the strength of our profession, in my opinion.
Boom. Is
the ability to really understand good loading, but also to understand a person at the level of the impairment, and the level that we need to know. We need to look at their needs and their desires and their wants, as well as respecting pain and respecting the process that they're going through. And the middle ground is the place where we find the right level of wording, it's the right level of loading, and it's the right framing of the way that they're moving. And I agree that you need both sides to make it work appropriately. So I think it's a fantastic analogy. It's beautiful. I can't believe I didn't come up with it. That's awesome.
May the force be with you, Scotty.
and with you.
It's weird.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Totally beautiful.
Amir, do you have any other question that you want to sneak in there? Because I'm about to go on a tangent. So,
well, I'll let you go ahead and go on your tangent. Right. My question is a little bit different, so I'll let you go on.
It's about Star Wars.
Come on.
No. Okay, so let's. I'm veering it back to getting off Star Wars. So low back pain is such a and this might be a tough question to answer, but low back pain is such a hot topic right there. And, you're the strength guy. How much, in your opinion, does strength play a role in low back pain? And if it does, what are the muscles that we really got to go after? And kind of how do you envision getting them stronger, like the multifidus and whatnot?
That is a loaded question.
Yeah, that's what I was like, we gotta make sure the air is clear.
You're just throwing out the hardest.
It's like, how do you fix people?
How do you save the world, Dr. Scotty?
Maybe I've already told you how I save the world, and it's through developing strength. So, the thing about any sort of pain and low back pain is it is not structural related. We know pain is a perception. Pain is a neurophysiological and emotive process that you can't address by saying, oh, we're just going to simply get a muscle stronger or get a tissue moving in a certain way or whatever. It is not that simple, and it never will be that simple. Does that mean that strength does not have a role? Absolutely not, in my opinion. Strength has a big role. But the challenge is if you look at the research on low back pain relative to changing tissue, so say getting someone stronger or improving their trunk muscle endurance or something like that. Although those type of activities tend to help people, if you look at the correlations between change in endurance or change in strength of a particular muscle or muscle group with the change in their pain levels or their disability levels, it's almost no correlation. So the change in pain and the perception of pain has absolutely nothing to do with whether they got stronger, whether they got more endurance, or even whether they moved well. So you could take this, and I know a lot of people do, take this and say, it doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter if we strengthen them. It doesn't matter if we focus on transverse abdominis multifidus. It doesn't matter if we do global type stability stuff. It doesn't matter if we ignore stability stuff and do functional stuff. You'll hear all of those things out there. I think to say that where I think strength plays a role, it again comes down to functional capacity. So it's really back to the same thing. It's not necessarily going to have a direct impact on their pain, and it's not necessarily going to have a direct impact on their perception of disability, but where it will have an impact is on their performance of daily living and their their capacity for doing things, which if you can develop that increased performance and increased capacity, as we know because we train, that has a very significant psychological effect and emotional effect on your perception of how easy life is. And so I think if you pair good quality strength training where you do respect movement and you do get people to move in a specific way that's good for them, and you also do the other things that will have a greater impact on their perceptions of pain and disability and worrying about really what's happening with the emotional stuff around pain, that you marry that stuff together, and that's where the big impact is. But if you ignore the strength stuff, again, you might get someone back to close to a previous level of function, but again, we're not optimizing.
Okay.
It just made me think about a great quote that I heard from, I think, Dr. Tim Flynn, and he said, we're all neuro, pediatric, cardio, strength training, whatever, all the different pain science therapists, or at least that's what we should be. And that's exactly the way he said it.
So all together, yeah.
Right. So it's cool to see that you got to approach it one way, because I thought, going into PT school, that I'm an orthopedic guy. I'm only going to deal with bones, muscles. I don't want to know anything about the brain, anything about cardio, whatever. And I'm sure a bunch of people feel this way, but once you get in there, it's like you have to sort of kind of be interested in a little bit of everything, but then also being able to say, hey, this is my patient population, but being able to marinate and blend that into different types of fields and different types of interests that people may have. So pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I've got one more, and then you can just go ahead and knock me out. Going a little bit more towards the research, and could you just spit off a few big research topics that you feel like every, maybe even individual out there, but for sure students or practicing physical therapists need to know? Say, hey, the research shows this. You guys need to know this kind of stuff. You have to at least know these concepts that we have scientists definitely proven to be fact. I don't know about factual, but
Yeah. Actually, the answer is no, I couldn't. And the reason is not to be contrary, but that I am anyway. But the point is, okay, there's lots of stuff out there. So I mean, if you were to say, hey, what about in this area, I could point you to a couple of articles that would kind of support where I think you should go. The problem is that in my opinion, I would be doing your listeners a disservice by listing off 2 or 3 big picture things, because honestly, EBP doesn't work that way. Right? EBP isn't about, the 1 or 2 RCTs or systematic reviews or whatever that point you in a certain direction. I think what that does is if you say, hey, everybody needs to know this article, it's really holding the research to such a high standard and putting it up on such a high pedestal that it really doesn't belong. Research is informative, but you can't look at single studies as being the be-all and end-all, because even the best studies, even the ones that you gave me this question ahead of time, and I came up with a list of a few, but even the ones that I think are fantastic, they don't answer all the questions, and there are opposing views that aren't shown in that research because you change the context and things change completely. Yeah. So what I would say is understand the role of research in your clinical practice and understand how to look at it and how to then apply it. So don't ignore it, but don't hold it on such a high pedestal that it dictates everything you do. Have it inform what you do. Right, and be open to change your viewpoint if you do see something that is contrary to what you've been doing. So I'm sorry, I didn't answer the question, but I don't think I would like not to answer that question.
So you're just making things so much harder. You have to actually learn more and be able to apply. You're looking for a quick fix. I just need the quick fix, Dr. Scott.
Just like a patient.
You guys are students. That's what you want. You want black and white. You want give me the right answer. Quit fucking telling me that everything is gray and that it depends, because I don't want to hear it. But you know what? That's life, right?
Yeah.
Hence, we reference the gray.
Oh God! golly, the great Jedi comes up again.
Full circle.
The great Jedi would have been awesome.
This is why the Jedis must end.
Yes.
that is the thought. Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your research, if you can, and how is it going, and how far you are into the process.
Yeah. I can totally do that. I'm happy to promote my own stuff. That's fine. So I've got a mixed bag of stuff that I've been doing. I actually started, so I've been a professor for 10 years, and I started in my PhD work and in my early career work in looking at exercise limitations in patients with lung disease, so COPD patients, and I did a little bit of work with firefighters and when they wear the SCBAs that they wear and how that impacts their exercise performance. And what path it led me down is finding out, okay, so if you have a ventilatory limitation, how do you get around that with exercise, and what do you need to know, and how do you train? And ventilatory limitations, as you guys have probably taken in some of your pathology and your systems courses about someone with COPD, is there's nothing you're going to do to change their lung function. You can change the way they breathe maybe, but ultimately their lung function is going to decline, right? So it led me thinking, well, how do you get around that, right? Like, how do you actually improve? How do people improve function? And how does rehab actually impact function? And so what it led me down the path of looking at is, well, it's really musculature that have a big impact on that. And so that led me into the strength training stuff. And so I've shifted a bit from COPD and lung disease specifically into general older adults, but then even looking at strength training methodology for rehab. And so I've got a few training trials that have just been completed, and then I've got a couple that are going to be coming up here fairly quick on older adults training with barbells and doing some high intensity interval work and things along those lines. And I did a little bit of that with the COPDers as well, and then also CrossFit and some strength stuff. So I've done a little bit of work on looking at the impact of having higher levels of muscle strength in CrossFit performance, and found some good associations between the level of strength someone has and their ability to do a basic WOD and that. And so it's a bit more complex than that, but muscle strength is sort of the combined thread that sort of ties everything that I'm doing together. And I've also got I've got a couple projects that are coming through a master's student of mine, Corey Eatington. He's done some really fantastic biomechanics work, and so we've looked at a couple projects in deadlift setup as well as squat setup. And so one of the results will be coming fairly soon. So you guys will have I think you'll really enjoy those articles when they come out. Sweet. But what we've looked at is so for the squat, we've looked at the biomechanics of a high bar versus low bar, and more specifically, we're looking at the moments and shear and compression forces at the lumbar spine. And so the thought being is that when you go to a low bar squat, your torso is more tilted and you get more hip flexion. And if you have a limitation in hip flexion, that should mean that you get sort of what we call the butt wink, right, where you have a posterior pelvic tilt and then your spine goes into more flexion, and that's limited mostly by the hip range of motion. And so the thought is first of all, A, does that actually happen, and B, does that increase the amount of shear and or compression force at the spine? And without I mean, we're still working through the data, so I can't really give too much detail, but I think it's a lot less clear having seen the data now than we would typically try and describe it, right? So I think that there's going to be some really cool stuff coming out of here to saying, well, actually butt wink doesn't matter, and and things like that. So anyway, I'm super excited to get some of that stuff out. And then the same sort of thing with the deadlift is looking at sort of the more Ole lifting deadlift position, where you set the bar up or your toes under or feet underneath the bar at closer to the MTPs, versus the powerlifting deadlift where it's closer back to the navicular and the shin, which has a big impact on the relative difference in the knee and hip angle as well. So it's very similar to the whole high bar, low bar stuff. And again, looking at the biomechanics at the lumbar spine for the same thing. And then we're finding basically the same kind of thing with the deadlift as well. So very, very cool stuff, which I think will have a really big impact on what we do clinically in making the assumptions that when we see something that it may not be doing what we think it's doing.
It's going to be awesome.
See,
Yeah.
If you do not mind when that drop, do you mind sending that to us?
Totally. Yeah. No, I will absolutely. When I can share something official, I will absolutely do so. I think it's going to be one of those things that, like I said, is pretty eye-opening, and there were a lot of surprises for me. I went into it. I mean, you try and stay unbiased, but you have your clinical opinions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought we were going to find something completely different than what we found. So, and I think that would be echoed in what you hear a lot of strength coaches and a lot of therapists say. So I think it's going to make a lot of therapists very, very happy because it'll confirm some biases, but it's going to make a lot of them very upset because it'll refute some of them too.
Do you have any biases in the past that you've had to struggle to get over, or that you're constantly trying to reassess your thought processes about?
Oh, totally. I mean, I'd be a terrible scientist if I didn't, right? If I had biases that I basically stuck to. There's been lots of things. I think this is what I just talked about in the squats and the deadlifts and the lumbar positioning, and that's a huge one that is very relevant right now, and a huge one that was, like I said, very eye-opening. I think one of the other ones is relative to the whole thing about core stability. Like I did my master's degree on core stability training. This was the study was published 10 years ago now, and what we did is we did a lot of work on trying to isolate transverse abdominis and multifidus, and really emphasizing a strict neutral position, and some stuff that came out of that was more, and the assumptions that we made around that was, well, that means that what we found was basically that you should focus on doing those things because you'd have a greater impact. But I think there've been a lot of research that's come out since then that I've really changed my viewpoint in that, there's probably not that much relevant to doing a lot of the isolated work unless for some reason you've got something really wonky, but it shouldn't be the go-to for most people, right? For most people should be able to train appropriately without getting to that level. And then the small select few where you really need to do that, of course you can focus on that. So I think that'd be the other real big one. Then I think the third one would be around the role of aerobic exercise in performance and in health. And I've kind of gone from the traditional ACSM type view that, hey, it's massively important. I went to it's, the complete pendulum swing the other way, saying, there's no relevance to it. And right now I'm somewhere in the middle. And I'd say that, I think we do put an overemphasis on aerobic exercise, but I don't want to say, and I don't believe that it's not important, because I do think it's important.
Really?
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. That's interesting to hear. Yeah, because boy, ACSM, man, you're like 5 times a week, or 5 times a week, 150 minutes. Like, boy, you're right.
Well, it says vigorous or moderate intensities. It doesn't actually say which kind. I just put that up.
You get 2 different. You can do the vigorous for like 20 minutes, or you can do the moderate for like whatever. But anyhow, the point I was just saying is, boy, they really do. You're right. They push that aerobics super hard.
Oh yeah. With such a small emphasis on resistance training. It wasn't until not the most recent, the 2017 ACSM guidelines for exercise testing prescription. It was the one prior, which I think was 2014. That one actually started to put in an emphasis and actually a fit prescription for resistance training. But that was the first time in the history, of 30, 40 years of the ACSM putting out these guidelines that they actually put concrete guidelines for resistance training in. So it really has been an afterthought over time, and it shouldn't be. In my opinion, it should be the other way around. We should have more of an emphasis on resistance training and low intensity physical activity as your aerobic stuff. Where I still believe that the aerobic training side of things is actually, it's not important to train aerobically. You should exercise aerobically, but not necessarily systematically train for endurance performance, which is what we're doing by following ACSM's guidelines. Right? Because you look at the progressions, right? Progressions are increase the speed, increase the duration. It's like training for a 10K.
Yep.
Right? And I don't think that that's the best thing that we should be doing for health. I think we need low to moderate intensity over a longer period of time and supplement that with some high intensity stuff. So whether that's sprinting, whether it's resistance training, high intensity, or combinations of those, I mean, that's where I would spend the bulk of our rehab and training time, is on not the aerobic stuff. I mean, people can do the aerobic stuff on their own, assuming that they're medically safe and healthy and that kind of thing. But, our rehab programs are where we see our clients, in my opinion, we tell them to do that stuff, and we tell them the importance of, you get done your therapy or your training and don't go home and sit on the couch. I mean, that's important. That's an important message, but that we spend our time teaching them how to do this higher intensity, more skill intensive type activities like strength training and higher intensity intervals and that kind of thing. That's again, a bit of a bias, but honestly, I think that hits at everything that we need to hit at without having to push into the endurance training model.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know the fittest, I guess you could say, that I was when I first, probably like 6 months into like CrossFit, and I was out there running like 10Ks, no problem. And you best believe I wasn't running more than 10K a week, but I ran a 10K just doing CrossFit training and a little bit of both, I guess you could say. So I guess that's where the pendulum for me is like right there in the middle of a little bit of both, or just a combination of both, more or less. So, but not say CrossFit or anything is better than the other. It's just pretty cool to just see that I wasn't running 10Ks to necessarily train for a 10K. It was different, and it sort of kind of changed my thought process on that. Like, this isn't bad at all. This isn't bad at all. Whereas you see some people that train out, rather it be aerobically or whatever, and they'll try to pick up a bar and have difficulty doing it. So I guess looking at it to see the resistance training basically leveling out to the aerobic, whereas aerobic doesn't necessarily translate back into anaerobic or resistance training. So,
that is the key point, in my opinion, is that you get the transfer from strength and higher intensity work into the aerobic realm, and you get aerobic changes even at the mitochondrial level, right to the functional level on the aerobic side by doing anaerobic work, but it doesn't go the other way. The only thing that aerobic training will do is prevent some of the loss of muscle strength and power on the muscular side. But it's fairly clear that unless you're really sedentary, you don't see any meaningful increases in strength and power with or muscle size with aerobic training. That's totally true.
Absolutely. Cool.
That's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, this is the first time I've been exposed to that. You kind of feel it out in the world, right? People, but I don't know if I've ever heard of anyone in higher education putting their foot down and making a direct kind of claim towards that way, which is amazing.
Sorry to cut you off, but I can send you some research that we got through, just through my program that basically says that as well. So if you want that, I can send that to you.
Send it to me.
Yes, sir.
There's lots of good stuff on that, and it's I think that concept is what's needed. We talk about the paradigm shifting stuff and what will change practice. In my opinion, it's understanding that people will kind of go, oh, right. And the question that I always get asked is, well, I'm an endurance person, or I don't lift heavy through my daily life. Why do I ever need to lift heavy? And again, it comes back to the same thing. What you're doing is you're training multiple systems and you're building capacity. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. It was definitely mind blowing to me. It was mind blowing. And then to try to flip it around the other way, try to say, I'm going to back off from the resistance training and then try to do cardio. I can tell you right now, my numbers went, and they went down because I wasn't doing as much. I'm not going to, pretend, but it was just sort of kind of cool to see it within myself, just like an end of one. I'm not saying, everyone get off of the resist or stop cardio training and then go straight to resistance. It was just for me personally, it was cool to see that, I'm running kind of slower, but I'm supposed to be training this way. It was just cool. And then the power and stuff like that went down just a tad bit. So it was cool. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, I think you can clearly see that in a CrossFit class. You can kind of get the sense that, after you finish a Metcon, you didn't go for a jog or perform any stereotypical type of aerobic training, but the Metcon you did with 5 rounds of 15 sets, 15 reps of kettlebell swings and toes to bar and all that stuff, you definitely feel like that was aerobic as shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exhausting. Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
And I don't think it's any confirmation bias on my part right now, but just looking at how I felt from CrossFit classes and hearing, Dr. Scotty saying, it's like, yeah, I can kind of put that puzzle piece together and say, yeah, that feels appropriate, at least in my head, and more beneficial, because at least as far as a time, being the most time efficient that we can be with people, it's like, yeah, let's get you in the gym, do some high intensity interval training with weights instead of just separating the two, or just saying we need to expose you to more aerobic activity. We can hit both nails on the head, or kill two birds with one stone. How about that?
I'll send you guys a link to an article that I published in 2014 that looked at HIIT training using a rower. So we did 1 minute all out intervals, 6 reps and or 6 rounds of that. We trained that 3 times a week for 6 weeks. Yeah, 6 weeks. And so we compared that with what we termed multimodal high intensity, which is CrossFit like, but it's done in an interval format, a defined interval. So we do the same interval, right? 1 minute all out, 3 minutes off, and then repeat for the same number of rounds, same time frame. But it was using resistance exercise in with the cardio stuff, right? And that's exactly what we found. We found the HIIT stuff improved the anaerobic performance and aerobic performance, and the multimodal HIIT, or the strength and HIIT together, did the same thing. But then they were the only out of the 2 groups, the only group that increased their muscle strength and their power and that. So I'll hit you guys up with that article too.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Because we have to pay for that on a research gate. So
Good point.
Yes.
I totally forgot what I was about to ask.
Yeah,
I totally forgot what I was about to ask.
Come on.
Bad podcasting.
You're dropping the ball. You don't know about Star Wars? You're forgetting questions.
Yeah. I just got a brain for it.
We might have time for the most important question of them all, Damir.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're right. You know what? Yeah, it's time for that. So, Dr. Scotty, favorite segment of the episode that I believe is the most important segment of the episode, and that is the question, what is your favorite duck? And we have gotten some pretty cool answers from this. So, fire away.
I'll be honest, and as much as I love listening to you guys, I don't ever stay for that question.
Oh God! Oh no!
So I don't know what everybody else is saying.
Good.
Now, are we talking about actual ducks, or are we talking about like mythical or character ducks?
You can go anywhere you want.
Okay.
Bring out that mythical duck.
Yeah. See. Well, if we're talking mythical duck, it's Howard the Duck, right? And I really want to say Howard the Duck because he's a Marvel guy, and I'm such a huge Marvel fan. But oh my God, has Marvel ever dropped the ball on Howard the Duck? They've like the stuff in Guardians of the Galaxy has just been brutal with Howard the Duck in there. So I'm hesitant to say Howard the Duck. Oh, wow. What I will say, and this is a truthful answer, not a funny answer. This is, I will say the mallard. And the reason I say mallard is that when I was growing up, I lived in BC for a very short period of time when my parents were out there. And I lived right close to my grandpa, who passed away when I was really young. And my favorite memory of him is walking through the park, and we were chasing the mallard ducks. And so that is my favorite duck for that reason.
That's beautiful. That's nice.
I had to end it with something sweet, right?
Yeah, that's sweeter than Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
Give us an emotional backstory.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
So just self-plugs in there. Where can people find you? I know we talked about Strength Rebels. I see that you're all over Twitter, and I love reading your Twitter retweets on Facebook. So just go ahead and fire away with those.
Yeah, so Strength Rebels is strength_rebels, and that's Instagram as well as Twitter. But I'll be honest, we're very inactive on Instagram. It's mostly Twitter. You can find us on Facebook as well, because everything goes through platforms. And then you can find me directly. I'm Inked Prof Scotty on Twitter, and also Dr. Scotty Butcher on Facebook.
Awesome.
Sweet. Anything you want to plug? Anything?
No, I think I plugged it all. You guys have talked about you talked about Star Wars, which was my big thing. So no, I'm pretty cool.
Star Wars, Metallica.
Yeah.
Not so much Drake.
Nope.
Disturbed. What's your
Disturbed,
favorite?
yep.
What's your favorite Disturbed song?
Oh man. Okay, so I didn't actually like that much Disturbed until I actually heard the Conan version of Sound of Silence, and so honestly, it's that one. It has to be that one.
We might in the editing we might play that out.
You should.
Yeah.
Like Hello Darkness, My Old Friend. Like
That's the one, man.
my
I'll throw that right in there.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
And you know what? The recorded version it's powerful, but not as powerful as the live Conan version. So if you haven't seen that, go on YouTube. It's amazing.
Okay. Do they do? Was it them that did Down with the Sickness?
Yes.
Yep.
That was,
Yep.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Always was like, I wasn't sure about that one part of that song. He's like yelling at his mother about things.
Is that what the song's about?
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh god.
Oh, Sound of Silence Conan version. I'm on it right now.
Yeah. Don't neglect it. It's good. It's worth it.
All right.
No idea.
Land of Confusion too. Land of Confusion is a good cover of theirs that they did. I actually do like Phil Collins and Genesis, and that was an awesome cover too.
Awesome. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Dr. Scotty.
Hey, thank you, boys. It's been awesome. You guys are great.
I've learned so much about you.
Too much, way too much.
That's the
Awesome.
point of the podcast. I agree.
May
All
the
right. Thank you,
force-
Dr. Scotty.
May the force be with all of you.
Awesome, guys. Thanks.
Great Jedi.